Dobar dan, gospodine Bolton, i hvala vam lijepa što ponovo govorite za Face.
Glad to do it.
Citat. Trump nije sposoban da bude predsjednik. Ako su njegove prve 4 godine bile loše, druge 4 će biti gore. Završen citat John Bolton. Gospodine Bolton, kako je Trump dobio ove izbore?
Well, I think in the country there was enormous concern about the state of the economy, particularly the inflation that had been very high during the Biden administration. So I think on economic issues, people wanted to change from the Biden policy, and Harris was the vice president. She kind of exemplified it. And I think on a number of social issues, the attitude of certainly the left side of the Democratic Party left a lot of people, including members of minority groups, feeling that they had been left out, and so they voted Republican too. And the general point is that America is a center-right country, and people thought that Kamala Harris and the Democrats were too far to the left. So not only did Trump win the White House, but Republicans gained majority control of the Senate. And in the House of Representatives, although it looks like it'll be close, we will hold on to a majority there too. So that's an indication that once again, when you put all the different pieces together, the big conclusion is that America is a center-right country.
Zašto tvrdite da će Trumpove nove 4 godine predsjedničke biti gore nego prve 4 godine? Da će on biti gori, lošiji?
Well, I think in the circumstances in which he will take office in January, there are more threats and challenges around the world than there were during his first term. Obviously, the big issue in his first term was the COVID pandemic, which the whole world faced, but it was not really a national security crisis. Today, there's a war in Ukraine. There's a war in several fronts in the Middle East. The threat of China along its periphery in the East China Sea against Taiwan or the South China Sea is very real. There's a growing Chinese-Russian axis that is still in formation, but really is posing a problem on a worldwide basis. So there are a lot more dangerous times ahead, I'm afraid, and I don't think Trump is really able to handle it. He doesn't know what the stakes are, and he didn't demonstrate really an ability to deal with the threats as effectively as we need in the first term. And I think that'll be the case in the second term.
Trump je obećao da će odmah zaustaviti ratove u Ukrajini i na Bliskom istoku. Sudeći po vašem odgovoru, vidim da čisto sumnjate da on to može da uradi, da zaustavi ratove.
Well, I do think he wants to end the wars quickly because he sees them as something he doesn't want to have to deal with. If they ended by the 20th, he doesn't really care on what terms they end, how they end, which party emerges with the better deal. He just wants them not to be on the table when he takes office. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is too complicated in Ukraine and too complicated in the Middle East to be wrapped up so quickly. So the question will be then how Trump deals with these respective crises. In the Middle East, it could be Israel does something dramatic against Iran in the days before the 20th of January. That remains to be seen. But I think Trump's going to have both these conflicts to deal with, and he hasn't really given much of an indication what he would do. He'd say, I would resolve them. The case of Ukraine in 24 hours, I'd get Zelensky and Putin in a room and we'd solve it in a day. That's easy to say, but hard to do.
Gospodine Bolton, sada se svako brine za sebe, pa se tako i mi brinemo za Zapadni Balkan. Prošle sedmice u ovoj emisiji Daniel Server je iznio šokantnu tvrdnju. Citiram ga, Amerika neće više podržavati suverenitet Bosne i Hercegovine i Trump će podijeliti Kosovo između Srbije i Kosova. Šta mislite o ovome? Je to moguće da Amerika odustane od Bosne i Hercegovine?
I don't see any indication that's going to happen. I don't know who the advisors that will be that Trump will pick who deal with these kinds of questions. There was speculation that Rick Grinnell would be Secretary of State or some other high position. That obviously has not happened. It doesn't mean he won't be in the administration. And it is important, in addition to cabinet secretaries, who their deputies are, who other high officials in the departments will be. I don't think Trump has spent enough time on the Balkans to have a fully informed opinion, but I would be shocked if there were a major change in U.S. policy.
To vas pitam zato što albanski i srpski političari svojataju neke ljudi iz administracije Trumpove. Naprimjer, Albanci svojataju zbog nekih prethodnih zasluga Ratcliffa i Rubija, a Srbi svojataju Grenela, Kushnera, pa i njegovog zeta Trumpovog, pa i samog Trumpa. Ima li to veze? Da li to može da se realizuje onako kako mi Balkanci navijamo?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'm not sure Jared Kushner is going to come back into the administration. He's, been out. He's raised a large investment fund, and I don't see him abandoning that to go back into the government. I think it's very hard to see any reason that Trump would make a change with respect to the policies. I mean, I think it's been our hope for some time that Serbia and Kosovo could find a way to resolve their differences. Stability in the Balkans is an important thing. The breakup of Yugoslavia still is not resolved 30 plus years after it happened because of the continuing disputes. But it would be, as I said, a stunning reversal to try and make matters worse by saying we don't care what happens to Bosnia. The variable that I worry about the most is Russian activity in the region. And we see that Trump's position on Ukraine could give the Kremlin a significant victory, in effect, in Ukraine, depending on how the negotiations go. And we've seen continued Russian activity in Moldova to try and affect the recent referendum on joining the EU and the recent presidential election. So, yes, Russian interference in Eastern Europe and the Balkans, I think, remains the biggest obstacle to achieving peace and stability. I think it's a concern that Trump would be friendly to Moscow, but I don't see that changing the Balkan policy significantly.
Pitam vas zato što je srbijanski predsjednik Vučić u poslovnim relacijama sa Trumpovim zetom Kushnerom, dobio je Kushner tamo u zgradu generalštaba JNA da pravi hotele. Potom, jedan zanimljiv podatak, predsjednik Srbije Vučić je među prvima se čuo sa Trumpom nakon pobjede. Dakle, da li mogu te privatne poslovne relacije da prerastu u diplomatsko-političke direktnije? Da li je Srbija u nekoj prednosti zbog toga?
I acknowledge that's possible, but I think Jared Kushner probably wants to keep his business as separate from the government as he can. He would face very considerable scrutiny and criticism if he did it any other way. And I just I watch what Trump says very closely, and I don't see any indication that he's focused more on the region, and that may be the best thing that can be expected for the next 4 years, that there might actually be more stability. But I think if there were evidence of more Russian activity, that would be a cause for concern. So I see why you're worried about this connection. I'm not at all sure that Vučić was the first person to get hold of Trump. A number of governments have said that. And, there was one government that's first. We just don't know who it was.
Sada ste kazali nešto što zvuči nevjerovatno, a to je Najbolje bi bilo za nas na Zapadnom Balkanu da se Trump uopšte ne bavi nama, osim ako bude morao zbog Rusa.
Well, I'm just saying it is a region that whose problems have proven difficult to solve over a long period of time, and although I certainly dealt with the question of trying to resolve the issues between Serbia and Kosovo, that obviously didn't work out. There was progress on northern Macedonia. That issue, that name issue, has been taken care of. Trump didn't play a role in that at all. That's probably a good thing. But we'll have to see how it goes. And I do think that the issue of the Ukraine and how that's resolved will probably set the tone for a lot of other things that happen in Eastern Europe generally. And I am worried about that, but I don't see a significant spillover affecting Bosnia at this point.
Mark Rubio je prije izjavljivao i pisao je pismo Bidenu i molio da Amerika pokloni više pažnje posveti Zapadnom Balkanu i da NATO pojača svoj angažman ovdje. Koliko te stare izjave mogu da uopšte budu bitne u novoj administraciji?
Well, it's certainly possible. Rubio is going to be a very busy man. Whoever Secretary of State or National Security Advisor has more work to do than they can. But and frankly, attention with limited bandwidth tends to be placed on areas where there's a crisis, and it's usually not good to be in the middle of a crisis. But 4 years is a long time. I do expect Rubio will be confirmed without any trouble at all, really. And it may be if he has a personal interest in the region, he will make it a priority whether Trump does or not.
Još samo kratkih pitanja za kraj. To sve zanima u čitavom svijetu. Otkud Elon Musk u Trumpovom štabu? Šta će uraditi on? Šta mu je cilj?
Yeah, he's not actually going to join the government. It appears he's going to be chairing a kind of investigatory commission to try and find ways to reduce the federal budget, make the government more efficient. There have been precedents for this kind of activity before. He won't have authority to change anything, but he will make recommendations on how to be more efficient and more economical in the work of the government, and maybe can make a contribution. Certainly the government spends too much money and is not very efficient. So if a fresh pair of eyes can give us ideas to be more economical, I would certainly welcome that. We'll see. I'm not holding my breath for the outcome, but it may be helpful.
Vivek Ramaswamy sa maskom, to je šokantna informacija, želi ugasiti FBI. Nije to samo 1,5 milion ljudi, vladinih radnika vani, već zar je zaista moguće da se ukine FBI, da se ukinu ministarstva, agencije?
No, that's not going to happen. I mean, the FBI, you can criticize the performance of the FBI in some respects, and I dealt with it when I was at the Justice Department myself in the Reagan administration. But the work that it does primarily in investigating crimes and subversion and doing counterintelligence is work that's absolutely critical in terms of domestic security and international security. And the idea you can abolish it is just silly.
Evropa se najviše plaši Trumpove najave da će se povući iz NATO-a, da će povući neke poteze. Da li je to moguće da bilo šta uradi na tom planu?
I think Trump does want to withdraw from NATO. I wrote about how close he came at the NATO summit in Brussels in 2018. And I think it's possible he would come and do it again. So that could be affected by how the Ukraine circumstances work out. But yes, I am worried about what Trump will do with NATO. I think it would be a catastrophic decision for the United States to withdraw. but if anybody could do it, it would be Trump.
I za kraj jedno lično pitanje, tiče se vas. Vidjeli smo na vašem primjeru da Trump baš ne trpi autoritete poput vas, ljude koji razmišljaju svojom glavom poput vas. Pa vas sad pitam, kada bi vas ipak sada zvao, da li biste prihvatili poziv da uđete u administraciju?
Well, I don't expect to get a phone call from him inviting me. And honestly, I would not accept it because I don't think it could work. Now, I do tell people who ask me, should they look at serving in the government? And I say they should because it's a huge operation and we need good people working in it. And it's an honor to serve your country, even if it's working for Donald Trump. But in my own case, I don't see it happening.
Hvala vam lijepa, gospodine Bolton. Hvala vam lijepa.
Thank you for having me.